everyone, it is me, E, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be ranking the TV shows that I've seen every single episode of. I'm not going to count any TV shows that only have one season or that are a limited run series. So like, for example, I'm not going to count Tiger King from Netflix, and I'm not going to count any TV shows that have only had one season so far, like Never Have I Ever on Netflix. So I have seen every episode of those, but I'm not going to count them on this list. It just doesn't seem fair. So we'll start off the ranking at number 20, which is Pretty Little Liars. If you've seen a single episode of this show, you'll know why it's ranked so low. I watched every single episode because the mystery was gripping and I wanted to know what happened next, but every twist and turn was stupider than the last, and it's just a terrible show. At one point I thought, I don't want to watch this anymore. I'll just read the book series so I can find out what happened. Well, it turns out that the book series has a totally different plot than the TV show, so I wound up having to read all the books and watch every episode of the show just so I could find out what happened in both stories. Number 19 is Free, which is the swimming anime. It was kind of like funny online several years ago and kind of like a meme almost to watch it, but I did see every episode and I liked it okay. Number 18 is How I Met Your Mother. This show would probably be ranked in my top 5 if it weren't for the finale. The finale of this show is so terrible. Basically, it undid all of the character development and plot development of the last season, which I watched as it was airing, so I was very much invested in this show, and I felt heartbroken by the ending, and I haven't watched a single episode since I watched the finale because it left such a terrible taste in my mouth. Number 17 is Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide. This isn't necessarily a show that I set out to watch every single episode of, but I just happened to. When I was a kid and this was airing on TV, I really liked it, and so I usually made some effort to tune in whenever it was on, and I always watched the reruns. Number 16 is Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? I really like Scooby-Doo, and if it was just me considering all of the Scooby-Doo canon, I would probably rank it higher, but I've only seen every episode of the original Scooby-Doo, Where Are You from the 1960s, and I really like that show. Even still, I watch it sometimes, especially around Halloween. Number 15 is Girl Meets World. This show is really cute, and it's got a very good Disney Channel vibe to it, so I would kind of recommend it if you were a Boy Meets World fan, because I like where it picks up, and sometimes the dialogue's a little bit weird and cheesy, but otherwise it's a cute show. Number 14 is Star vs. the Forces of Evil. This show's pretty cool and I like the concept a lot, but unfortunately the show declined in quality pretty significantly after the first couple seasons. The animation quality declined, they stopped doing really cool fight sequences, and the plot just kind of got out of hand and seemed like they didn't know where it was going. There were too many filler episodes. There's a lot of complaints about the later seasons from me, and I think most people would agree. Number 13 is The Legend of Korra. I like this show, but as I outlined in my previous video, it's not one of my favorites per se. Number 12 is Drake and Josh. This show is so funny. I really like it. I think that some of the jokes still hold up. Even me as an adult laughs at this show, so that's pretty cool. Number 11 is iCarly. I would say the jokes in iCarly don't hold up as much as the jokes in Drake and Josh. Some things in iCarly are kind of unfunny now and very cringy. However, iCarly still is funny to me, and I was so passionate about it when I was a kid, when I was like in middle school and early high school, that like I have to rank it high now. Not that 11 is that high out of 20, but that's still pretty good. Number 10 is Steven Universe. Steven Universe has some of the same problems as Star vs. the Forces of Evil, honestly, with weird pacing and a decline in animation quality. Again, they stopped doing cool fight sequences and switched over to doing a lot of just talking through their problems. Most of the villains in Steven Universe became very uncompelling and just kind of boring. But overall, I think that like the set design was so beautiful and I love a lot of the songs in it. So for that reason, I really like it, especially like the super original concept. Number 9 is Bob's Burgers. Bob's Burgers is just a great show. It is so easy and fun to sit back and watch. This show is currently airing. It's in its 11th season and I'm up to date. I recommend this show to pretty much anybody. It's for the most part pretty wholesome and family friendly, and I like how Bob and his family all kind of genuinely love each other. Number 8 is Brooklyn Nine-Nine. This show is so lighthearted and fun, but also it has sort of like a mystery element to it because they're New York City detectives and they're trying to solve crimes, which is really cool. And the characters in this show are pretty lovable. But number 7, Parks and Rec, I think has slightly more lovable characters, so that's why I ranked it a little bit higher. Number 6 would be Kim Possible. I've seen every episode of this cartoon, and most of the episodes I've seen several times. I just think that it's really great. Animation quality stayed super high the whole run of the show. It had awesome backgrounds, and Kim is just super cool and is somebody who I think little girls can aspire to be like, somebody who just tries her best all the time, which is awesome. And I still like Kim Possible now. Some of the jokes are still funny as an adult. Number 5 is Stranger Things. I don't think I really have to describe why this show is so great. Most people have seen it and know. Season 2 is really not that great. Season 2 is better, I would have ranked Stranger Things even higher. But season 1 and season 3 were both really good. I love Steve Harrington so much. So that's why Stranger Things is at number 5. And number 4 is Boy Meets World. As I mentioned before, I was a huge Boy Meets World fan, which is why I watched Girl Meets World. Boy Meets World is just super heartwarming and fun, and also the jokes are still pretty funny, and it's nostalgic too. I like the kind of the 90s fashion of it, and the characters again are lovable, and their hair is great, and I still kind of have a crush on Eric Matthews. Number 3 is Seinfeld. It may be a little bit basic of me to list Seinfeld on here, but it is really just a funny show and kind of a very important and integral part of like American culture, honestly. Like there's so many things from Seinfeld that are just like part of our everyday vernacular, like yada yada, that comes from Seinfeld. Also, no soup for you, that's from Seinfeld, and a lot of people use variations of that phrase, and that comes from there. Things like a close talker, a high talker, a low talker, that all comes from Seinfeld. And these kinds of things are part of like our American dialogue and phrases that we use on a regular basis. And there are just so many like iconic things from Seinfeld. You'll see in the icon drawing I did at the first half of this video, I drew the marble rye from the Rye episode, which is just funny. Like the marble rye to me is one of the funniest things in Seinfeld. But there's so many things. Every time Kramer opens the door into Seinfeld's apartment, it makes me laugh. Number 2 is super basic. If you thought Seinfeld was a basic choice, number 2 is even more basic. It's Friends. To be honest, it's like I know this show is really not that great, but it is just so like comforting to watch. This show aired for the first time in 1994, like a month after I was born. So it's not even like I'm particularly nostalgic for the time that this show was set in, because I was such a little kid during the time. But there is just something about Friends that feels nostalgic and feels like you're coming home. I like the fictional New York City where your dreams can really come true. And to be honest, it's like, I know that people kind of hate on Ross, but I never hated him that much, really. Like, yeah, he's kind of crazy, but I even like Ross. Like, he's funny and has some of the greatest lines in the show. And obviously, I think we all relate to Chandler as being kind of the straight man, sarcastic person who at times feels, in a state of despair. And there are just so many things about Friends that I feel, I don't know, kind of are comforting to me even now. Certain storylines like Chandler and Monica's journey to parenthood is something that, like I said, kind of brings comfort to me now. And number 1 shouldn't surprise anybody, but before I get to number 1, I want to mention some dishonorable mentions. These are shows that I had an intention of binge watching, but were so terrible that I couldn't finish and had to quit. The first dishonorable mention is Glee. This show is horrible. I don't know why I watched as many episodes as I did. I thought I was going to finish the show, but I think part of the reason was I found out that the character playing Finn died and they wrote him out of the show, and that kind of hurt my feelings, so I didn't want to watch anymore. Similar to that is That 70s Show. I was all gung-ho about watching every episode of That 70s Show, but then I found out that Ashton Kutcher and Topher Grace make limited appearances in the final seasons. And to be honest, the plotline where Kelso gets that girl Brooke pregnant kind of turned me off from wanting to watch it. Also, I thought Hyde and Jackie were a cute couple and they broke up. That kind of turned me off too. So I stopped watching That 70s Show and I never finished it. And the last one is probably going to be pretty surprising, but The Office gets a dishonorable mention from me. It is so cringy. I get such bad secondhand embarrassment that every time I try to watch it, I can't watch more than like one episode at a time, which makes it unbingeable. I think Michael Scott is a terrible character. Like, he's funny, but he's also so cringy that it's hard to watch. So I never finished watching The Office, and I don't think I ever will, especially since a lot of people online really say that the final seasons were really bad. I just don't want to subject myself to it, so I'm not gonna. So now we're on to my number one pick, the best TV show, and one of the ones I've seen every episode of, and that is Avatar: The Last Airbender. It's not a perfect TV show by any means, and there are things that I would change about it. Namely, I think that Katara and Zuko should have been together, not Katara and Aang. But there's nothing you can do about it. And even with that, I still think it's a great show, and it has really awesome animation that's consistent throughout. The fight sequences always look good, and I think that it's got interesting world building that's very consistent throughout the 3 seasons, and also lovable characters. There's not really any characters that I don't like or that I don't find compelling. Even if I don't like the character, I still find them compelling. Katara is a wonderful role model. Sokka, I feel like we all kind of can relate to. We almost kind of see the world through his eyes as a non-bender, and that's really cool. I just love Avatar: The Last Airbender, and I've made multiple videos about the show at this point on my channel, which you can obviously tune in to watch if you're interested. I ranked every episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender, and I also made a video about why I ship Zuko and Katara, which is one of the earlier videos on my channel, actually. So I've been talking about Avatar from kind of early on this YouTube channel. I'll briefly mention the artwork I'm doing. I wanted to do kind of a group shot to encapsulate a lot of the TV shows that I've seen every episode of. So in the first half of the video, I did a drawing of some icons from some of the TV shows that are on my list. I have doodles that represent Parks and Rec, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Seinfeld, Friends, Pretty Little Liars, and How I Met Your Mother, as well as Bob's Burgers. And if you've seen any of those shows, you should recognize where those icons come from. So let me know in the comments down below which ones you recognize and which ones you don't. And then obviously for this drawing in the latter half of the video, I'm drawing all the cartoon characters. Well, not all of them, but most of the cartoon characters that from the shows that I've mentioned in this video. Obviously, Aang is kind of front and center as the protagonist of Avatar: The Last Airbender, but I threw Scooby-Doo on there, as well as Korra and Star, Kim, and I actually put Amethyst and Steven from Steven Universe. And just in case you're wondering, I'm counting Steven Universe and Steven Universe Future as one show. I've seen every episode of both of them, so I guess for that reason, we get 2 characters to represent that show. But anyway, that's basically all I have for this video. Let me know what you think of my ranking, and if you agree with me. Maybe you haven't seen all of these TV shows. Let me know which ones you have seen and which ones you haven't. That will be a fun conversation to have in the comments down below. And with that being said, I am off. I hope you all have a great weekend, and I'll speak to you all later. Bye-bye.